My job at JPL is to conduct field experiments for an Earth-observing satellite. It sees the whole Earth. That means I get to travel a bit. Every 98.88 minutes, the Terra Environmental Observation Satellite put into space by NASA in December 1999 orbits from the North Pole to the South Pole, passing at an altitude 705 kilometers over the equator at 10:30 a.m. local time. This pattern repeats itself every 16 days, and as one would wrap a ribbon around a ball, the imaging strips made by the instruments on board cover the ever-changing climatic events of our fair blue planet. This is what Southern Africa looks like to MISR, one of the Earth remote sensing instruments aboard Terra. Designed, built, and operated by JPL, MISR takes these imaging strips at 9 angles, which enables all sorts of unprecedented estimates of land and atmosphere interactions. In August and September 2000, the MISR project, along with all of the other instrument teams on the Terra platform, participated in an intensive international field campaign called Safari 2000, focusing on the remarkable smoke haze generated, circulated, and percolated in the southern African anticyclonic gyre during their winter dry season. One of the things that can be done with MISR multi-angle data is measure atmospheric optical properties and remove their effects. This image is similar to what would be obtained if that were done. The two white features in the upper part of the image are dry lake beds or pans and are used as calibration targets for MISR. Political boundaries are prophetically rarely visible from space, but they do help you locate yourself. Safari 2000 was to cover the entire southern subcontinent. Before the campaign, I had to find likely sites for my work and figure out local logistics. After attending a planning meeting in the capital of Botswana, Gaborone, my guide and I drove the Trans-Kalahari Highway to the Namibian frontier. We spent the night in a little town in Namibia called Witwatersrand, which is right about here. And then, the next morning we went through Windhoek, the capital of Namibia, and on up to Etosha National Park. After checking out the research situation at Etosha, we decided to cross the Namib Desert and look for sites among the pans and fans of the Skeleton Coast. Please allow me to introduce my guide, the Pan Man, Frank Eckert.
Well, we're now on the eastern edge of the Kalahari. It's getting drier, you can see very little vegetation. Just a whole lot of sand covered by grass. You can do it.
This is the first time I had to wait for a couple of asses.
Aha! Look out! Oh!
Any words, Dr. Eckhart?
It's flat.
How do you pronounce it?
Whale.
This is a German fortress tower left behind from the colonial days. It's where the main administrative center for Etosha is.
Etosha. We're now in this part of Namibia that's called Damaraland, the eastern edge of the Namib Desert. As we keep heading west, it gets drier and drier. And up ahead on the horizon, you can make out a mountain called Brandberg. These are very delicate ecosystems.
Do go on.
We're getting closer to the almighty rock. As far as southern Africa is concerned, not a lot has gone on geologically speaking. A lot of it is very old. You don't have any plate margins like you have in California. Tired old landscape. Alongside with the granites and the schists, you also have these small minerals. This is called mica. Believe it or not, this very fragile thing is again about 700 million years old. It's Precambrian. Just like as thin as paper, and you can almost look through it.
Yeah, cool. So where the hell are we?
On the edge of the Namib Desert, eastern edge. Its name is called Welwitschia mirabilis. People actually don't know how the seeds got transferred from the male to the female plant. They really only occur in a very, very small part of the Namib, and even then, their occurrence is very, very patchy. These are the so-called etendekalavas. 10% are found here, the other 80 or 90% are found on the other side of the Atlantic. If you imagine that, you would have looked towards the west, and it would not have been the Atlantic. The Atlantic is only about 70 kilometers from here, but what you would have actually seen would be today's Brazil. No water in the middle, which is quite remarkable, I think. Okay, those are now schists. It's basically an upturned seabed. And what you see are the actual layers that used to form the seabed. The whole thickness is in the order of 40 or 50 kilometers, and those are the oldest rocks we have in this area. This is pretty much covering a large chunk of the central Namib. Want to start counting layers? I'll pick you up tomorrow. We drive deeper into the sea now. This part of the Namib Desert is known as the Skeleton Coast. That's because there's a lot of shipwrecks out here, and there was no help. If you got wrecked here, you were in trouble. There was no way out. But the Skeleton Coast, really, if you're going to turn right here, you drive about 300 kilometers to the end of that road, and then there's about another 300 or 400 kilometers to Angola. And everything from here to up there just gets deader and deader as you drive. I hope to do some research just behind us next year. Up ahead now you see this crusty surface, that's a salt pan. As a matter of fact, the road we're driving on is made from sea salt. The reason why you can do that is because it doesn't rain and the stuff stays hard. If it does rain, you end up with a rusty car within a few hours. You wouldn't want to be here. But it does rain. But I suspect we're going to spend tonight somewhere along the beach here. We don't have any beers, which is a bit of a bummer.
It's Namibia's gold. Hi, my name is Hugh Mark, and we're here on the river of...
The Omaura River.
The Omaura River. We're driving along and we see this sign that says construction for the University of Namibia.
It was a student architect project.
It must have been. Seems to me this would be a good place to site a sun photometer if we decided to fly this ocean. Well, we had an extra day to kill, and this was a different route to go back to Gaborone, and thought I'd at least check it out. So here we are, middle of Namibia.
Looking for breakfast.
The rest of this video chronicles my activities during the Safari 2000 dry season campaign. Before I was to meet up with my equipment in Botswana, I and my assistants, Peter Yannick and Wolfgang Behrman, were invited by the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria to speak to students at the local museum. There we met a couple of interesting characters who are also committed to scientific outreach. What was your name for the folks back home?
Bridget Davis.
Ah, okay.
I'm an educational officer and general drug.
All right.